Right.
Okay, welcome to the meeting of the Board of Directors agenda meeting for next Tuesday's March 5th board meeting. And we will turn it over to Mr. Watkins.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Going through the order of business, we need to know if you're going to have any guests here that you've invited or that we need to know about, that we can go ahead and add to the agenda. Anybody have anybody?
Not that I know of right now, but we might
Okay.
round up some by then.
I will be giving the city manager State of the City report next week at the start of the meeting. Then any of you who have announcements regarding upcoming events will be afforded the opportunity to mention those. Moving to the consent agenda, we first have the Public Safety Committee. Will it be handled by Deputy City Manager Bill Burrow?
Thank you, Mr. Watkins, Board, Mayor. We only have one item on the Public Safety Committee's recommendation, and this is the 200 block of Tri-Vista left. We have the resident's name on file, but this resident has asked that we install a handicap parking sign to designate handicap parking only in that 200 block. There's only one section there. There's only one parking spot in that block. This resident is unable to get to her car in the basement and must park on a street in front of her house. This is only an issue during the race meet, as this particular area is no parking on this side of the street from 10 to 6, race day only. Staff recommends installing that ADA handicap parking only signage and markings and removing the no parking requirement in front of that particular resident's house.
Any questions of Bill? Thank you, Bill. Okay, next item is designating April 12th as a free ride day for Hot Springs Intra-City Transit. Bob Reddish.
Thank you, Bob Reddish, Intra-City Transit Resident Advisor. This is our annual free ride day that we have every year. That's redundant. We're having it April 12th this year, which is the last weekend of the race season. People are going to be broke, and it's just before income tax are due, so people are going to be broke. Figured this would be a good time to have the free ride day.
And it's a wonderful day for all the city directors to ride and get a taste of what it's like to be
Absolutely.
broke on a bus, right?
Absolutely.
And then you can communicate with all the people and their routes and learn who the people are and where they live and what they do. It's a really great day.
Every day is a good day to ride the bus, but that's particularly a good day.
Yeah, it is. It's free. We don't have to pay.
It's free. Doesn't get gooder than that.
Thank you, Bob. Next item is a resolution authorizing the filing of a grant application with the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program for the procurement of professional services and for training and travel expenses for the Historic District Commissioners and staff. Kathy Selman.
Thank you very much. Well, the title pretty much says it all. This is an annual application for funding from the state. The projects which can be funded must further the goals of identification, evaluation, nomination, and protection of the community's cultural resources. The total that will be requested is $12,426. No city financial match is required. However, the city staff's time spent on historic preservation is considered as an in-kind match. This will fund training for both the Historic District Commission and their staff, and also a re-survey of the Pleasant Street historic neighborhood.
Woo! Woo-hoo!
In District 2.
Yes. Any questions of Kathy?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10 will be consider a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for services between the City of Hot Springs and Garland County for information system IS services.
Hi, I'm Jeff Winter, the IS Director for City of Hot Springs. And basically, this is a biannual agreement that is due after 2 years. Obviously, of note, there's not really any change that's significant in it. It's from 2 years ago. For you new directors, kind of the highlight of it is that basically they pay 100% of the cost. So we have no out-of-pocket costs, and they do actually pay a portion of my salary and the IS manager's salary as well for our oversight and for our day-to-day planning. So otherwise, it's the same agreement it was 2 years ago, and it's just a renewal.
Great.
Questions?
Anybody? Thank you, Jeff. Okay, next item after the appointments. No, I'm sorry, before the appointments. Item number 11, consider a resolution awarding a contract to Pro Signs and Graphics for annual supply contract for police vehicle graphics and tint.
Wait a
Question
minute,
four.
you look extremely tan.
But must be the reflection off the cold ground, I guess.
Must be.
I know what you're talking about. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the board, David Flory, Police Chief. As Kathy said, the name says it all. As indicated on the BARF, this is a recommendation to award the annual supply contract for police graphics and tint for our what we anticipate will be our new police vehicles that we will talk about in a little bit. We went out for bid, advertised on the city's website, sent notice to 15 potential vendors in the area, and the low bidder, Pro Signs and Graphics, will be awarded the bid. And when we receive our new vehicles, we will take what is a black SUV and wrap the doors in white instead of painting them, which is cheaper. And then we will put our new graphics that we put out last year as part of our rebranding and marketing campaign within the department.
Good.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we're going to have the appointments. And then number 18 will be consider a resolution approving contract with Brown Engineers LLC for electrical engineering and SCADA support services for the water and wastewater utilities. Gary Carnahan, City Engineer.
Thank you. We have had this contract with Brown Engineers before because we have really upgraded our water and wastewater system now with a lot of electronics, automatic meter reading and monitoring all over. And so we need a good electrical engineer on call in case we have a problem with those services. So this is an annual contract for that kind of support. We did a rate and rank of firms and selected Brown Engineering. They have done this for us before, and we really like the service we receive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Is there a retainer fee, or is it just an hourly rate?
It's an hourly rate, not to exceed, but we only pay them as we need them, as needed basis.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Next item is to award a contract to RP Power for towable generator sets for use at wastewater pump stations, $182,535. Gary Carnahan, City Engineer.
Right. This is another part of our consent administrative order efforts to reduce overflows in the city. And we don't have enough money to put a permanent generator at each major pump station in the city. So this money will allow us to buy 3 towable generators mounted on a trailer, and then the department can take that generator to any pump station that is without power. So it spreads our money around and gives us a lot of flexibility in the system. We did a bid opening and selected, or let's see, no, yeah. We did a bid opening. We put that out for bid and this is the contractor that our consultant is recommending that we award the contract to. Thanks.
Okay, next item, number 20, would be to consider a resolution awarding a contract to Economist.com to provide certain professional services, which would be an analysis of various rates and/or fees charged by the City of Hot Springs Stormwater Utility. Denny McFate.
Thank you, sir. Denny McFate, Public Works Director. Staff's recommendation is to approve a final contract extension with Economist.com to perform a stormwater utility rate fee study to review the feasibility of a tiered rate structure for the stormwater utility. In 2008, the city created a stormwater utility and began collecting fees for stormwater service and infrastructure repair and maintenance throughout the community. The fee structure was and remains fixed, or a base set fee, which is $6 base fee for commercial accounts and $3 a month for residential accounts. The fee structure was established with the future intent of restructuring it to a more equitable tiered method for commercial properties and residential properties once funding become available to pay for this particular study. At this time, a large box store, for instance, in commercial side, produces much greater volume of stormwater runoff and water quality issues and we charge them the same rate as if they were a small gas station. Economist.com is an economic and financial consulting firm which has extensive experience in conducting rate studies and has performed rate studies for our city's utility department over the last few years as well. This study will involve preparing a long-term financial forecast of revenues and long-term expenses and fees associated with the operation of our separate storm sewer system, utility, and keeping up with the EPA mandates. Resolution 7543, as approved by the Board of Directors in October of 2010, allows for contract service with Economist.com for various rate consulting services for a period of up to 3 years, subject to inclusion in annual budgets, and that's what we're asking for as an extension for that final year. This amount for this study is not to exceed $29,000 and was budgeted in the 2013 Stormwater Utility Fund. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Does this include impact fees?
No, ma'am.
Not on the stormwater. Even though that might,
We don't have any review of the impact fees.
we will on water and wastewater. I don't believe we're asking for impact fees in stormwater.
No, sir. This is, right now, when we first set up the stormwater utility, we set up a base rate of $3 and $6 because we didn't have money to do the detailed study at that time. Now that we do, we're coming back and asking him to look at comparatively residential, how much difference it is in residential. And like I give you the example on businesses, Walmart has a larger contribution than a small gas station would. So they naturally should be a tiered type system where you're funding or paying for a different amount.
But Danny,
Yes,
there
sir.
are large businesses that have retention ponds. Are they going to get credit for that? Or how's that weigh into this?
That's something that he can look into with that. We do have an allowance in our stormwater program to take that in consideration. However, most of the time it's dealt with on the front end. If the business or a commercial business wants to ask for that when they're beginning the development, they can. That's an opportunity at that time under construction. Something they could look at is in the future as far as giving them credit for those kind of things, water quality too.
Bill?
Can I ask the definition of impact fees?
Well, I don't know the ordinance we've got that has impact fees for different connections.
I
But
think Bill wants to speak to it.
Yeah, go
He
ahead,
has a
Bill.
clarification for us.
I just want to state that staff will be going through the process of rate and rankings again this year for additional services from a rate analyst that will be looking at impact fees. It is time to have that impact fee study, and that we do plan on doing that in 2013. However, that is not part of the stormwater request that we have in front of you today.
So this is a
Randy,
different request.
I don't understand what an impact fee is. That's my question.
An impact fee is a methodology where you can charge a new use, coming in for a permit that creates an extra demand on the system. For example, if you had a high level wastewater customer coming in where the rate charge would not be significant enough to pay for the capital infrastructure to serve that use, a lot of communities have an impact fee which comes up with a formula that allocates capital costs to that particular use.
Okay.
And it's needs to be looked at very carefully because impact fees have been challenged around the country, and they have been upheld, but you have to have you cannot discriminate between users. You can't say, well, if you're a church, you don't have to pay, but if you're a business, you do. They have to be applied across the board. And you have to come up with a capital improvement plan to spend the money in a timely manner. You just can't hold it and never spend it.
Okay.
So we'll be getting into the, to the meat of that, dealing with water and wastewater in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
City of Hot Springs was sued for our impact fee on sewer. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld our fee. But with respect to Director McCabe's issue on stormwater could potentially have an impact fee, but yet be mitigated by retention ponds and other improvements that they may do on the property itself. But realizing that stormwater continues to flow and goes across other properties, there may be further impact down the line, and so that's where the impact fee would come into play that would benefit the entire system, not just what's going on the property at hand.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And Economist.com is who just provided a report to us on the utility rates.
That is correct.
And is that who you're looking to for the impact fee study?
It's a timing issue at this point. The current rate and ranking that we have with Economist.com expires in October of 2013. As we move through the process of looking at our wastewater needs, bond issues, those things moving forward, depending on that timing, if it's prior to October, then we will come in and recommend economists. If it's beyond October, then we will need to do another rate and ranking, and whomever that analyst may be at that time is who we would recommend.
Okay, thanks, Denny. Next resolution is to consider awarding a contract to TUSA Consulting Services for certain professional services. These are related to a city-county analysis of a wide area communication system that Chief Davis has been intimately involved in.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. What we're here today to talk about is that Mr. Watkins said, is radio communication needs assessment that was performed. We're in the process of now at a point where we can name someone to actually carry it out. Our committee, which was comprised of officials from emergency management in Garland County and also in the city of Hot Springs, put together a set of qualifications for communications need assessment study, set some parameters for it, and we feel that after interviewing the top applicants for this, that TUSA Consulting is probably the best choice. TUSA has worked in mountainous terrain like Hot Springs on numerous occasions and has received really good marks from their customers. And TUSA is not associated with any entity. In other words, they're not allied with any manufacturer. So that is an issue that is highly important. We don't want someone to come in and to design a system for us that will be solely proprietary to one type of manufacturer. It's really important that we get the best we can. TUSA also will be charged with three things. One, they will design their first system or set of systems based solely on cost. The second set that they will put together for us will be based on user-defined needs, and the third will be based upon what they think would be the best system or systems to meet the cities and counties' needs. This does not obligate the city of Hot Springs or Garland County to purchase a system. It is just gathering information, fact-finding through a set of communications engineers who know their business very, very well. We think it'll be money well spent. It's money that is already budgeted on both the city and the county side, and it will provide us with good information based on cost, user need, and also upon the consultation of some very, very intelligent people. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I have a question for clarification, and since we haven't gone through the orientation process, could we go up to number 10?
Sure.
Why is it stated that way, authorizing, is this the same system we talked about, the information? This is different from the telephone systems that we talked
Yeah,
about
if
at
you,
the last meeting?
you might recall in a previous agenda that we talked about buying a server
Phone system.
split between the two entities And, but Jeff, is he still here?
No, what I'm asking about, it says authorizing the mayor to execute a contract.
Right.
Why do we do it that way?
Well, it
rather-
could very well say directing the mayor to be authorized to execute a contract. The mayor signs the contracts on behalf of the city that the board approves. This contract is not for the purchase of anything. This is the services agreement between the city and the county. The city's IS department provides the IS services for the county.
I
And
understand
so-
that. It's about the signature of the contract. I thought that was Mr. Watkins.
No, the board authorizes the mayor to sign contracts.
Sign all contracts?
Yes.
Okay, so that's different than the other managers.
Yeah, the
cities do.
POs and all that I saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Okay, the next item really is related to the new business item number 30. But since old business occurs before new business, we're going to ask you to approve the extension of what we're calling the Harps connection out on Central and Amity Road. One clarification I'd like to make is that the consent decree that was signed back in the early 90s that Attorney Albright has mentioned in the past requires that the city approve wastewater connections if capacity is not being used up, as long as it was on a map that was prepared by a Mr. Schweitzer from Dallas around 1970. Now, this particular use meets both requirements from a sewer standpoint. It's was on the map in 1970. It does not cause us to reach capacity with our regional plant. And the other consideration would be that the property in question actually has the ability to directly connect to the sewer and water. So for all those reasons, we are recommending that you approve the connection of Harps to the city's sewer utility. And then if you move on to item 30 later on, and if that's adopted, then I would be delegated the responsibility of making that decision following guidelines and parameters that would be set on what we're trying to encourage and what we're trying to incentivize, and that will be developed in the near future. So with that, are there questions about number 22? Anybody? Okay. Okay, item number 23. Mr. Bob Driggers came in this morning and filled out a agenda action request with our assistant city clerk, Leslie Kaufman. And we have put that on the agenda for you to consider adding, as we've talked about in the past with agenda items. It's my responsibility and staff to put the agenda together prior to today. And if you want to delete items or add items, this is the opportunity to do so. And so this is a request to have you consider adding this to the agenda.
Was it yesterday the deadline?
Today at noon, the way that the current policy is written.
What time did he come?
About 10 o'clock.
Oh, shucks.
Is this a city citizen?
Yeah, and we do need to remember that this is being televised also, so we need to be polite.
I'm always polite. It's the way you take it.
So what's the request?
Right.
The request is Mr. Driggers would like to have the issue about the public commentary section, I assume not being televised, to be discussed by the board at the meeting next week. And I'm not aware that he's a city resident.
Stone Gate number 2.
Well, that's in the county, as you know.
It just indicates that it's for discussion of the public commentary section of the board meeting.
Is, Mr. Watkins, is that for the purpose of having the board discuss the issue, or he wants to discuss the issue?
You know, I don't really know. Maybe Leslie could shed some light on it. Leslie Kaufman's our assistant city clerk and actually took the request.
He came in this morning and asked that the item be placed on the agenda for discussion between himself and the board. He didn't want to just come on the public commentary section. He wanted it to actually be an item that you could take action on, if so decided.
So we don't have an idea of what he is going to propose or what this discussion is really going to be about, other than what we're surmising it will be about.
He indicated that it would be about televising the
Televised portion, okay.
And it's your discretion. We have people occasionally come up with a request to add their item to the agenda, and, you know, they're denied or approved. It's really up to you.
I think he's coming from quite a few people calling and asking that it be put back on the television. And I've gotten a lot of those calls, a lot of those emails, and they would like to have it reinstated. And I think he is just asking that it be on the agenda so that they can speak to it, to have it either voted on in public or voted against in public, whether or not it's on the air or off the air. It's just a platform for the people to be able to address it, whether or not it's an item that can be voted on.
Well, that presupposes that there would be a motion and a second on an item that's, I mean, there's no action item here. So.
Well, that's why I think he's putting it on.
I think what we've said in the past
Putting it on the agenda.
This is different. This is a request to be placed on the regular agenda. And what we've done on the past is if we feel like this item is better served in the public commentary section, then we would invite the person to speak at that point in time. And then, you know, in a week or so, the city manager might poll some of the directors, or we might decide to put it on the agenda as an action item, but not, you know, not at the same meeting. So, and the previous city manager would always listen to those comments, kind of meet with them even afterwards, and get some clarification, and then see if there was an action item to come before the city board.
All I think
but not
is-
all wrapped up in one package.
What we're doing is we're stirring a pot that if we continue to stir, you're asking for more letters to the editor, more front page articles, and if you just go ahead and allow it to be on there, listen. If you want to take action to it, take it. If you don't, don't. But I'm saying if you refuse to hear this after he has asked to have it on here.
I'm happy to hear it. It ought to be the number one thing under the public commentary section.
All I'm saying is if you take it off the agenda, you're just asking for more people, more. All I'm saying, you're just stirring a pot that you probably don't want to stir. That's all I'm saying.
No, let it burn in the pot.
No, it won't. You'll have more people in this room. You'll have people aggravated. I'm getting phone calls, emails, and all
Nobody's
of you
called
are too.
me.
Either.
I've forwarded several to you, I thought.
From you, I've had
One person.
comments to the contrary.
Okay, all I'm saying is if you want more to deal with, take it off the agenda. If you want to just let it happen, it'll happen and we'll go on and there won't be a lot to deal with. But if you continue to,
Well, Mayor, I think I made a
We'll continue
comment,
to
and
deal
I don't
with
know
it.
how we move it from one to the other, but Brian can advise me, but I think I've indicated I'd like to see it moved to the number one item under public comment. I think we allow 7 people to speak, and that could be the first of 7.
Since
he-
there is no action item in here, I'd have to agree with that it can be brought up at that time and at a 3-minute, he can do a 3-minute presentation just like anybody else would.
I'm just saying that he's representing people that will come to sign up for and against.
As long as it's an agenda item.
There won't, yes.
And I'm just saying that at the first step, it should be in public commentary.
Not if he brought it and asked for it to be on the agenda. I'm saying you're trying to take an item off of the agenda that a citizen of this city, not of the city, but
County.
of the county. It's still Garland County, I don't care. Go ahead, do it, see what happens. Front page.
I don't care about that. I love to be on the front page of the
All
paper.
right, go for it. Go for it.
Have a
I'm
good
in,
picture
I'm
every
in. Go for it.
So my direction would be to not place it on the agenda and go ahead and pre-sign him for
Yeah,
public
make sure he's got a
commentary.
spot,
Okay,
you know?
we can do that. Okay. Next item is calling a special election on the question of changing to the aldermanic form of city government and prescribing other matters pertaining thereto. Brian, did you want to, or Lance?
I don't know,
Either one
yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Lance, why don't you take it?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, as all probably the directors are aware, the petitions that were submitted to the mayor and then basically sent on to the city clerk, they were deemed to be sufficient in number. So the next step is the proclamation to call a special election to have the question heard, and Brian can probably indicate more so we've spoke on the timing and things like that, but Brian has the nuts and bolts of it.
The statutory direction that we have is found at Arkansas Code Annotated Section 7-11-205, which provides that should the requisite number of signatures be obtained, a special call election shall be held not less than 60 days following the proclamation. And with respect to timing, in order to have an election prior to the summer break, which would cut down the turnout for an election significantly, we would need to issue the proclamation, resolution, or ordinance calling the election at your upcoming meeting on March the 5th, so that the election could be held on May the 14th. So that would be the recommendation with regard to the resolution that will be presented to you next Tuesday.
Brian, can I ask?
Question.
I beg your pardon. Go ahead.
I'd like to have a copy of the petitions, please.
We can do that.
Sure.
Yes.
When he was notified that the signatures were insufficient, did he appeal that decision?
He did not appeal the decision that there was a lack of sufficient number of signatures. He simply supplemented within the allotted cure time a sufficient number of signatures to reach the requisite number.
When somebody files a petition, is there a time for them to appeal formally the decision of the city clerk?
He could have, but as I said, we gave him notice of the deficiency and the cure period of 10 days, which is the minimum that is allowed under Amendment 7 to the Arkansas State Constitution.
Oh, I see. So he was never notified that it was insufficient until we were able to give him 10 days, which means we held off for the Attorney General's opinion?
No, sir. We actually never received the original petition until February the 5th.
Okay.
As it turns out, the copies that he submitted to the mayor in November of 2012 were copies, in fact, not original signatures.
So in February, it is as if we would have received a formal petition.
Yes, sir.
And he cured that within 10 days.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
It
you.
took, the clerk's office spent a considerable amount of time and effort to get the signatures verified as quickly as possible. There's not a timeline that is set out in the statute. It's just as soon as reasonable. And Leslie and Lance worked hard to verify those signatures, found that there were insufficient number, gave him notification of that, and advised him of his 10 days to cure, which he met.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Could I ask that when this is presented, that we also, and I know a lot of it is you're going to have to do some predicting about it, but to estimated costs, not just cost of the election, but what the whole alderman, mayor salaries costs, and the city manager's costs, the actual cost, total cost of it is.
We've gotten an estimate from the Election Commission, which will be included within your packet. However, your other question is very speculative. because assuming that the measure passes and the form of government is going to be changed, there will be a transitional period in which this body continues to be the governing body of the City of Hot Springs until the next election. And so there would be a considerable amount of time during which this board would devise future budgets and salaries and that sort of thing. But certainly there would be a mayor's salary, payments to the aldermen. The number of aldermen would be an issue also to consider, and things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, that would certainly be forthcoming, but would be speculative until the board actually took action to appropriate those things. Yes, ma'am.
Any more information for the packet that you need? You want copies of the petition?
Yes, please.
And the cost? Anything else you can think of? Okay. Next item is consider a resolution awarding a contract to Online Construction Company for the Fairwood Pump Station Force Main project in the amount of $730,387. Gary Carnahan, City Engineer.
Yes, sir. This is a result of a bid opening and awarding to the low bidder this contract. It's about 3,000 feet of 20-inch sewer force main, which will connect our Fairwood pump station that's being built right now to the force main that's already been installed from about Bradford Marine all the way to Shady Grove Road. So that long force main, we lack this 3,000-foot connection portion to get across the creeks and across the highway. It's a very difficult construction area, but we need to recommend that you approve this contract so we can get this started too. And last board meeting, you approved the designation of those funds from our sewer wastewater operating funds to pay for this contract.
Gary, any idea of the completion date for the project?
I think it will be, I'm going to say summer of 2014. What do you think, Richard? Something like that.
Very good.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, this item's been referenced earlier, but it authorizes the purchase of certain vehicles pursuant to the State of Arkansas Cooperative Purchasing Program. Finance Director Doretha Yates.
Thank you. In the 2013 budget, the Board of Directors authorized about $1.9 million in capital expenditures for the general fund and general fund dependent funds. A number of those included vehicles, and what we're bringing to you this next board meeting will be 16 of those vehicles that were approved in that budget. Of those 16, there's one from street, there are 12 from police, 2 from animal services, and 1 from planning. The total of these vehicles is $377,187. Your packet will include detailed information on what vehicles will be replaced. It will also include detailed information on what vehicles are being chosen, what options are included in that, and the price on the state contract. All of these vehicles will be financed through 5-year borrowings.
Doretha, do you have any concept or speculation about how much money the city saves by going into a cooperative purchase?
No, I do not know. I know that in the past we have tried to bid out vehicles on our own, standalone, and we've never been able to even remotely come close to what the state contract offers on these. So I know there is substantial savings by going through the state contract for these vehicles.
Good. Any questions? Oh.
Will it include the disposition of the vehicles that these 16 are replacing?
Yes, it will. It will include a detailed analysis of the vehicles that will be replaced. However, on the police, since that vehicle fleet is constantly changing. We don't make the decision on what vehicles to replace until we actually get those in hand. As you know, there's a pretty large lead time between the time we order a police car and we actually place it in service. So on the police, no, that won't be on there, but for every other vehicle, if a vehicle is replaced in one, there will be a detailed analysis of that vehicle that's being replaced.
And it's being taken out of service.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Doretha. I think you're up to bat again. The authorizing, excuse me. Okay. Authorizing the financing of certain 2013 budgeted capital and for other purposes.
Thank you. As I stated before, you guys approved about $1.9 million in capital for this next year. And as we've done in the past, we are going to finance that through a 5-year program. Arkansas State Law Amendment 78 authorizes us to do this. We went out for bids. I believe we received bids from maybe about 8 respondents. And the best bid came from Chase Equipment Finance. The way we do these is they can't give us the exact rate because we don't know exactly when we're going to go into that financing. So what we ask for is a benchmark rate with a number of basis points added. And they provided that to us. The rate, if we were to have financed at the point that we sent the bids out, would have been 1.37%. I might mention that what we paid last year, I believe, was about 1.56%. So we've done a little bit better than what we did last year. And all of the forecasts that we use in the 2013 budget were with a 3% number. So we will have a little bit of savings that will accrue to us as a result of that.
Very good. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is waiving the requirements of competitive bidding for the procurement of post-rehab flow monitoring services from the RJN Group and for other purposes not to exceed $73,480. Gary Carnahan.
Thank you. Again, part of the consent administrative order bond issue. This is some of the last money we have available in that bond issue, but we're asking to waive we have spent, let me back up and say, we have spent now in the southwest portion of the city over $3 million in the last year and a half, lining manholes, replacing manholes, and replacing old sewer mains that had to be replaced, lining sewer mains, pipe bursting sewer mains, various techniques to reduce inflow and infiltration and manhole overflows. Now, we want to go in and monitor that, put flow meters in that system, and see how successful we've been at reducing inflow. The company that did that for us in 2008 is RJN Company, the company we're recommending here. We'd like to use the same company, using the same techniques to go back into that same area and compare the numbers they had in 2008 with what's happening today. And we hope to see good results from that. Previously, we paid them $412,000 to install 65 flow meters in our overall system. This work will be $73,000 to install 12 flow meters just in that area where we've been working so hard to make improvements. So we'd like to waive competitive bidding because they did the original study. They did a great work. And from that work, they developed the model that we use to model the wastewater flow in our entire system. So we'd like to keep them connected with that because they maintain our model. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, next item is authorizing the allocation of fines, court costs, and restitution in district court, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes.
This is an opportunity that the city has to put itself in a better position with regard to the collection of fines through district court. Some of you may have received an email recently from the Arkansas Municipal League. There is pending legislation that will change the city's ability to do what we are proposing to do if we don't take advantage of this now. Essentially, what happens in district court, fines that are collected on behalf of the city go into city general. And so that's a significant source of revenue for the city that unfortunately sometimes is declining because we don't have jail space to put them in, and so they don't pay their fines. There's no place to put them in jail. So in situations where there is restitution, oftentimes the defendant is allowed to make installment payments. When the installment payments are made, the money goes toward restitution first. Secondly, the money goes toward the court cost, which goes to the administrative offices of the court in Little Rock, doesn't stay within our local court system. And then lastly, the fine money is collected and then distributed to the city or the county, depending on who is entitled to the fine. Under this piece of legislation, we can take advantage of a opportunity to where it can be 50-50 after the restitution is paid. Restitution would be paid, the next dollar that is paid after restitution, 50% of that dollar would go toward court cost, and the other 50% would go toward our fine. So that puts us in a better position to get our money more quickly, and in some cases, to get our money at all. If there's restitution, and I'm making this up, if there's restitution of $2,000, court cost of $150, and a fine of $200, if the person only pays $1,000, we don't get our fine money. It's just restitution. And so the rest is out there waiting to be collected. And again, you know, it's a failure to pay, failure to comply. We'd like to put them in jail, but currently we don't have the space. So it just hangs out there. Under this scenario, which it's a no-brainer for the city to adopt this ordinance, we will at least be in a position to be able to share 50-50 on every dollar above restitution, if there's an installment plan. If they just pay cash up front in full, we get our money. That's not the issue. It's when there's an installment plan that's the issue.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Finally, we mentioned this earlier. Consider an ordinance adopting regulations governing the extension and connection of municipal water and wastewater services, amending ordinance number 5555, and for other purposes.
This ordinance will be, as David mentioned earlier, this ordinance will be presented to you next Tuesday in an effort to formalize the discussions that were held during your board retreat in order to delegate those decisions to the city manager, and so that those issues don't come to the board and put you in an awkward situation having to make decisions that sometimes become political. We'll be developing criteria that the city manager and his designee, the utilities director, to be able to quantify when those connections are viable and when they are not. But they certainly will be tied to the capacity of both of our treatment facilities, whether it's sewer treatment capacity or water production capacity.
Questions of Brian or me?
Oh, mine is just, you know, we talked about putting some of this stuff on the consent agenda, and I just wonder if anybody see anything on here that would or could or will go to the consent agenda to kind of get the meeting going.
Well, you know, definitely the resolutions could. Well, I guess number 24 would be.
We need to be talking about what he just said, so we'll be sure that we know
We need
what
to
we're
talk
talking
about what?
The election is the...
Oh, well, of course.
But 25, 26 could be.
There's two of them could go.
Do y'all want those moved to consent?
About 27.
Yeah, 27 too.
27
That's
is an
an
ordinance.
Oh,
That's
is
all.
it?
Well,
No.
you can't do that
Okay.
one.
Right.
Yeah, the resolution's absolutely, except for 24.
Except for that.
You sure we
those
understand
two
what he just
that
said about
won't.
55?
No, that would be-
30 is not on consent. 30 can't be on consent.
No,
It's
I
an
mean,
ordinance.
are we understanding exactly what you just said? Or are we skipping over to something else?
No, I thought he was done.
Okay, are you done? You understand all that? You said, are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
So would we be saying that all decisions would be made by you or up to a certain number of?
Up to 20-unit equivalents, whether that's 20 dwellings in an apartment or 20 lots, or whether it's a commercial establishment that has the equivalent of 20 units.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions about number 30?
Let's not leave that until everything's answered.
I do have a question about number 30. When we allocate hookups or extensions or anything else, do we have an understanding of what we think we can accommodate over the long term? I mean, if you've got a unit of 100 that you can hook up and you do it individually, one at a time, you obviously have 100 decisions to make. That's different than hooking up a 50 unit and then all the rest of them individual. How do you balance your understanding of what the city's capacity is versus the continually adding on in increments where all of a sudden we turn around and say, I wish we hadn't done that?
I think Richard has mentioned this, but we assign what's called an EDU, equivalent dwelling unit. And we know how many EDUs we have available in water. And what we're doing now is what I would call kind of metering those units out. And we know that we've got X number of units, and every time a connection comes in, either in or outside the city, we're subtracting that until we reach, a level that uses up everything that we've calculated. I believe, Richard or Gary, that's applicable to sewer also. I know in water we do that.
Richard Penn, Utilities Director. There is some similarity between the methodology between water and sewer. The water that we're looking at now is more of a declining balance. So as people add on, we have less left, and we're just keeping track of that. With sewer, there are dry weather indications and wet weather. Of course, wet weather can go anywhere. If it rains really, really hard, it's going to be worse than if it rains a little. At this time, this study that you're considering approving that RJN will be doing is a follow-up that will document our success at tightening up the system in this area that we've discussed earlier today. Based on that, we're going to see how much better we're doing at making capacity in our system and proving that we're not going to continue to have these overflows into the creeks and into the lakes. So yes, there's methodology where we definitely know what we have available in our system today for treatment capacity, and on an average daily treatment, we have lots of room. When it rains, that's different. But the consent administrative order and our efforts we're under now are diminishing that impact, and that's just going to go on until the EPA is satisfied with what we've achieved.
Richard, in the area of water hookups or extensions, when we have these EDUs, do we have a comparison between what we would like to see for business development versus residential use?
I am not so much in the planning area for our city. I believe the planning department would be better skilled at answering that question as to what are we looking for businesses or residences, and how does that support our economy.
Well, but I think moreover, it really speaks to our economic development strategy, because planning and development don't do the recruitment. They do monitor it. But I think, as we've said before, we don't need to be Metro Partnership. We don't need to have Metro Partnership out recruiting heavy water users or heavy sewage demanding customers until we get through our short-term issues, either the consent order on the wastewater side or the peak usage in water in the summer.
Okay.
So we don't, and we've communicated that to Cape Rockwell with Metro Partnership. We know that, now from a business standpoint, let's say we had a lot of capacity, your rates take into account that, at some point you're losing money on water treatment. So there's a point where a higher user makes more money for the business than a single-family home when you take into account the capital cost of extending a water line to one home. But right now, we're looking at, we only have this much to use, so we can't have one or two users come in and take it all, because then we'd have to shut down single-family growth.
But David, how does that relate to what Brian indicated with the 1993 directive from the judge regarding if you have capacity at the time the request is made and those various criteria are met, you have to provide the service.
And the consent spoke to wastewater only.
Well, but let's talk about wastewater.
Well, on wastewater, I mean, this would be true of, other utilities like gas. Natural gas was hit by this, I remember back in the 70s.
I guess I'm getting at is Director Foley's initial question was, how do you monitor this so that there is some opportunity there for other hookups? And all I'm requesting is based on the 1993 ruling, you could have a user for wastewater use up everything except just a fraction of the capacity, and then the next two people sign up, it's used up, and you have no more plant capacity. You got to build another plant.
That's why I think Brian referenced that above a certain demand, I'm going to have to bring that to you for.
But how do we even say no based on that 1993 ruling?
Well, I mean, first of all, and we'll learn about this a little bit more in our work session. This is not the place for this discussion, but with regard to that order, capacity doesn't mean just because you have a drop left, you have to issue. It is a factor to consider in whether or not you will authorize and approve the connection. It's a factor. It doesn't mean that if you have 1 gallon left to give, that you give that gallon.
That we need to not have this discussion now.
Yeah.
I think, Karen.
And you have the tool from RJN that they developed that can assist in determining the capacity.
That's correct.
For the sewer.
That's correct.
And from what they demonstrated, that's a really, really good tool.
It is a good tool, and I appreciate your support for this follow-up study, because that's going to validate our efforts in the field, and it's also going to validate or help in validating that model as to how accurate and how beneficial it's going to be in the future.
Is there any idea of how long that study's going to take? How long we'll have some
I believe we can start
information
it this
from it?
summer. I believe there's some dry weather flow data that needs to be taken whenever, it's in the summertime, and then there'll be some wet weather measurements, so it'll depend somewhat on the weather.
Right.
But I believe it could be wrapped up this fall. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay, there being no other questions, I think you're going to go into, are they going to interview?
Yes, we're going to
Yeah,
interview.
yeah. Call to order a special meeting.
Yeah, okay. That is the end of our agenda meeting, and we will have a regular meeting of the Board of Directors, special meeting number 3, and we will call this meeting to order.